Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Sports Talk with Brodes. I'm not insanely pissed off. We understood that they just came off of a really intense game late against the Washington Wizards, although you can argue it never should have been that way. They should have put away that team. There's no business for the Wizards scoring over 130 points and getting back involved, but it happened. We all saw the type of effort that was needed late. We saw Tobias Harris log in 41 minutes. Joel Embiid played 37 minutes. We figured there would be fatigue. You're also going on the road. So I'm fully aware of that situation. I think both can be true. I think you can understand where they were at in the schedule and also be disappointed in some things and still be disappointed in certain areas of their game. Specifically, the two important pieces, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, did not show up. And the fact that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were not on the floor also adds a layer. You got to be able to dominate this team. Joe Harris and Caris Levert should not be able to do the type of damage that they did. Levert, 22 points. Joe Harris, 26 points, I believe, or was it 28? It was 28 points. Once again, guards making plays. Once again, guards scoring points. And I was informed that this team is lethal defensively. Last game, they absolutely were not. Followed up by 122 points for a KD-less and a Kyrie Irving-less basketball team. It's unacceptable. Offense won't travel every night. You might not get the best looks every night. You might get great looks, but they might not fall. That's natural. That's just the flow of an NBA season. You're going to have great looks, and you're just not going to be able to knock them down on every single night. Fine, I can live with that. But defense's effort, especially, this is what bothers me the most, especially when it's your identity. That's what you are supposed to do. That is how this team is supposed to win games, by their unbelievable defense, by swarming the opponent. And they're just not competing on that side of the floor. How many easy buckets for Joe Harris? Come on now. I got to admit, his swag was unreal. If you want to close your eyes and think about what Brodes would look like when he's playing ball on the streets and when he's rocking and rolling and going to the local courts at the local park, that's exactly it. You got the flow going over the headband. The only difference is I'm not drilling 6 threes. I'm not dropping 28 points. I'm doing what the Sixers should have done, and that's taking charges. And that's slapping the damn court. And that's bringing the heat on the one side that would then translate to good offense on the other side. That wasn't the case. And I'm really disappointed in Ben Simmons offensively. I'm disappointed in Joel Embiid. And I know there's going to be off nights for them. So I am seriously sitting here saying you're not going to have Embiid give you 38 points like he did last game and control every single night. That was one of my concerns entering the season. How many games can he do it? And what will happen when he doesn't do it? Who will be the guy when he's not available to be the most dominant man on the floor? He finished 7 of 14 with 20 points. 7 of 14 with 20 points. Can't happen. This team was turning the ball over every single possession, it felt. 20 turnovers leading to 35 points. Unacceptable. Now, what is crazy about that stat is, you know who had 0 turnovers? Tyrese Maxey with 21 minutes. Oh, by the way, he finished with an impressive 16 points, knocking down 2 threes. Doc Rivers, after the game, pointed him out specifically. Tyrese came to play. Tyrese Maxey came to ball. And I love his jumper, I really do. There were questions about could he shoot. Doc Rivers laughed at those questions, but there were questions about his shooting ability, specifically, deeper and shooting a farther jump shot. But I love the way it looks. I love the form. It's pretty looking, and I can't wait to see him continue to do it. But he was straight up balling out there, and the fact that he had the rock in his hands, and on a night where everyone seemed to turn the basketball over, he held the possession. He was finding his teammates. He was making smart decisions. The kid is 20 years old. It's so damn impressive. By the way, we are broadcasting live from the Manscaped Man Cave. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BROD at manscaped.com. So after the first quarter, it was a 2-point game. The Sixers closed out the first quarter on a 16-6 run. Once again, I'm focusing on trends. I'm looking at what the head coach values, and I want to see how this team responds. It's been a big point, a big vocal point from the head coach. I need us to close out quarters better. Well, the first quarter they did that. They started the game out slow, and I guess I anticipated that. They weren't really able to knock down shots. Tobias Harris had rhythm early. He lost that flow, though. So it was as if they played a game the night before. When you watch that game, if you were totally unaware of the Sixers schedule, you would probably look around the room and ask this question. Did they play last night? Because they sure look like it. They did close out the first quarter on a nice run, but then they got outscored by 12 in the second quarter, and they were down 14 at half. 13 seconds into the second half. 13 seconds. Doc Rivers is calling a timeout. That pretty much sums up the night. That pretty much explains everything. He was not happy. The execution, not good enough. Now, he did say something in the media conference that I did not agree with. He said it was a lack of focus, not fatigue. The way I look at it is, why do you lose focus? When you are tired, you lose that focus. That's how it works. When a team isn't focused, it's probably because they are tired. It's probably because they just had a game the night before that was extreme and it was intense towards the end, where you needed to go to your best guy over and over and over and over again down the stretch with a handful of minutes left to secure the victory. So you take a victory, and, well, it costed you a victory because of how much effort your big man had to put in. And you knew that Shaq and Charles would say something during the halftime show about Embiid's performance. They always do. They always call him out of shape, and, they always rip him into pieces. That's just standard. That's how they operate. I did notice at times Joel Embiid looking a little bit fatigued for the first time this season. But once again, doesn't that make sense? I'm not here insanely frustrated. I'm not here so bothered. I'm going to point out things that did not make me happy and that upsetted me. But this is the nature of things. You're a 7-1 basketball team on a second part of a back-to-back. Regardless of who's on the other side, it was almost as if they were due for a loss. Now, I wish it wasn't that way, and I wish the two big guys, and when I say the two big guys, I'm talking about Ben and Joel, I wish they had a better mentality. I wish they knew that they could take advantage based off of the other team not having their two guys. But that's the youth side of things. I talked about how big of a step Joel took last night. I thought Joel really showed a big leap. Well, this is the type of game where if he did it again, if he bounced back from that again, that's what I was looking for. So I'm not claiming this was a huge step in the wrong direction, but if he would have done it, I would have added another layer to how excited I was about Joel Embiid. But this one somewhat felt a little bit like what we have seen in the past. We know how important Seth Curry has been to the spacing. You did have some good looks throughout, but the spacing did not look as lethal without Seth. Seth is almost shooting 60% from three, by the way, which is absurd. That's eventually going to go back to his average, but I think the turnovers and the lack of Seth Curry kind of had a correlation. This broadcast sucked. And I bring that up there because they were talking about things, the pick and roll. They were running this snug pick and roll between Ben and Joel early. And they were talking about how, look at this pick and roll between these two. They ran that action with Brett Brown. That was a similar action that they have used in the past. They were calling guys the wrong names throughout the entire game. They had no passion and no buzz, and I feel some of that has to do with naturally calling a game in an atmosphere where the crowd goes wild. That brings the energy throughout the broadcast team as well, but I don't see an issue with Mark Zumoff. I don't see an issue with some of these other broadcasters. That was a trash, and I mean a trash broadcast. It hurt the experience for me as someone watching the game. It made the game feel even worse. The game was pitiful as it is, let's be realistic. But to add that broadcast on top of it, it was literally miserable. Ben Simmons, 4 of 13 from the field. Can't finish. Now, he shut me up yesterday, starting out the game 5 of 5 from the field. But I also mentioned some of those balls were like rimming around a little bit, and it wasn't a smooth bucket. He would take contact, and it would find its way in, but it didn't look like he firmly believed that that shot was the shot that he was comfortable with. They never look comfortable, even if he does finish near the rim. In this game, he was all over the place. He has to be more efficient. And I know people say this is who he is, this is what he is. Finishing 2 feet from the basket, finding touch in that area, I would have to imagine you can do that. You talk about the three-point game, he took one. It was ugly as hell. It was a brick. But I'll give him credit for stepping into it, no hesitation. It had rhythm in the selection of the shot, and from the pass to him, when the ball was swinging, it looked like a standard NBA 3 that wasn't hideous. Now, I'm talking about form. I'm not talking about where it actually went. It was clearly way off and too far to the right. But he took it. I'm not even talking about that right now. I'll give him credit for doing it. I'm worried about the inside part of the game. He is going to be hanging around the dunker spot in crucial moments, in big moments. Finish! He was awful offensively. And it's something that we've seen out of him for quite some time. And of course, when a game like this happens, the initial instant reaction is start the drama. Get him out of here! Get him out of here! It's the same thing that you get with Jim Schwartz, right? The whole Jim Schwartz thing. He'll put together in 16 games, 12 strong ones. The 4 that are bad and that are on him, you want to fire his ass, get him out of here, he sucks, he blows. With Ben, I'm just as annoyed as anybody else. Do not get me wrong. And this year, I've actually turned the ticker even higher. It's like the heat and the intensity of how I feel about Ben has reached probably the highest it has ever been, because I am expecting at this point for him to be taking that step. I talk about it with Joel, I'm talking about it with Ben as well, and it's not to the level that I want it to be. But after a game like this is when everyone talks about trading him. But they didn't say that last night when he had 17 points, a bunch of assists, zipping it from the paint to Danny Green in the corner who hits it for 3, zipping it with these great passes around. And I'm not here defending the guy. He has to be better. He needs to learn. He needs to adapt. He needs to adjust. He needs to get touch around the rim. I'm talking about layups. You have to be able to learn how to knock down these 2-foot shots. You got to be able to absorb contact. He's never comfortable. That has to be a part of his game. Doc claimed he's not worried about the shooting. I claimed, you will be, Doc. You will be. Like, it has to be added. It does. I mentioned the halftime crew. They're the halftime crew, the post-game crew, and they talk throughout. It's the standard TNT crew. They were talking, and Charles specifically was mentioning this, and you know how I feel about it. The Sixers, they're going to win regular season games. They're going to lose regular season games. It's about the playoffs. This team could be built for regular season wins based off the spacing, based off that style of play. It comes down to how this is going to operate in the offseason or in the postseason, and you won't know that until that time comes. What really irked me tonight, though, was the lack of effort defensively. That should travel with you no matter what arena you're in. I'll tell you what else irks me. and this is like a combination of a little bit of what happened last night, not so much tonight, but, after last night's performance, everyone says, you wouldn't have seen that win happen last year. That's not true. Or not even that. You wouldn't have seen that type of win over the last 3 years. Well, that's not true. It's not true. People have been saying that for every win this season. All 7 wins. All I heard was, you wouldn't have seen that last year. Yes, you would have. Before the bubble, they won 29 games at home. The year before, they won 52 regular season games. The year before that, they won 51 regular season games. That's 103 wins in 2 seasons. And then add the 29 home wins that they had last year. They did win games last year. It's like the people who see Carson Wentz play this past season and forget and act as if the guy has never done anything successful in this city. Every win so far this season, they wouldn't have won last year. It's just not the truth. It's a silly narrative. It's insane. It's because of a hatred for one man that is irrational and not logical. Man, people really do crack me up with some of this stuff. Look, the third quarter, I saw something that just defined the game. You know me, I look for my defining moments. Embiid had an offensive foul, followed by Ben trying to take it to the rack, and as he's taking it to the rack, a good defensive play by the Brooklyn Nets. It hits off of his knee, goes out of bounds. TLC is knocking down three-pointers. TLC is stealing basketballs, and then on top of that, he's throwing it at Dwight Howard as well. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I'm thinking, TLC, what the hell are you doing? Who are you, first off? It's also embarrassing for the Sixers to allow him to make those plays. And not that he had some stellar night by any means, but in the third quarter when I saw that, I thought, uh-oh, come on. When TLC is having those type of moments, well, it's pretty much telling you exactly how this game is going for the Philadelphia 76ers. But speaking of Dwight Howard, my man knows how to get fouls on him, huh? He fouled out in 15 minutes. Were the refs egregious? Sure. They are every night in this league. Show me a game that is refereed well in the NBA. I'd be stunned if you could find one. It's just not how it goes. But he's constantly picking up 4 fouls, 3 fouls, in very limited action. You had all kinds of weird rotations happening. Isaiah Joe got time in the third quarter. Matthias got run in the first quarter with just about a minute or 2 left. That's what happens when Seth Curry's out. And I also think this team is hurting from no Mike Scott. One of the reasons why Tobias had to rock 41 minutes last night is because you don't have that true 4 to help you out off the bench. I saw Ben playing the 5 at one point when Dwight went out of the game with the foul, with that 6th personal foul. So you're seeing them right now moving around a bunch of pieces, trying to figure it out. Looking at another bench piece, Matisse Thybulle. He played 17 minutes. He did not hit 1 bucket, and he went 0 for 3. He's someone that needs to work on that offensive game. Shake, I like what Shake brought. He was someone else. I thought Tyrese Maxey banged with them. I thought Shake Milton brought a little bit of swag as well. 24.7 assists on 8 of 13 shooting. What I would like to see more out of him right now, though, is maybe being more efficient from the 3-point line. But all around, I thought Shake and Tyrese Maxey came to play. You know, they showed some energy. They play with a little bit of juice. They play with a little bit of swag. And I got to tip my cap to them. But ultimately, that third quarter run I talked about with an Embiid offensive foul, Ben the ball hitting off his knee, TLC, on top of 13 seconds into the second half, your coach having to call a timeout to make a damn statement. You know, I'm sure he wasn't thrilled at that moment in the game. That's somewhat showing you exactly how it is. Now, I saw Rich Hoffman of The Athletic tweet this out throughout the game. You know, he believes that Doc is one of those coaches that pulls his starters early throughout regular season games, almost as if, all right, I'm not going to lose sleep over this. And that is the nature of how the NBA is. Regular season games don't matter. I've been stressing this for quite some time. They have value. They're not insanely important. And Doc, well, the way Rich Hoffman sees it, and he's someone who's been covering the team for a damn long time and knows a lot about this league, sees Doc as someone who kind of pulls it out early. Like, hey, this is not our night, so be it. It's a regular season game in the middle of January. The season just started, so be it. Throw out some other guys. Let some of the bench guys play. Although the starters did get in there, Toby and Embiid at some point in the fourth quarter, but there was a moment where it did look like they pulled the plug a bit and recognized the situation. I'm just underwhelmed because without Kyrie and KD, you could have made a statement. We're looking for this team to make the next jump. And it's hard to be the Golden State Warriors of a couple years ago where they went on that historic run. Even great teams fall and lose regular season basketball games. But I'm still looking for that difference. Winning this game, now that would be a time where I would say last year or the last couple of years, you wouldn't see them win this game. That I could support. You can't say that after every single win, though. I just tallied it for you. 103 wins in the first 2 years of when Brett Brown was handed a roster where it's like, hey, go compete. And then a 29 home win season. It's so weird to count last year's bubble games and the stoppage middle of the season. So 29-2 at home or so when all of that happened. You can't say it about every win. But this win, or this game, if they would have won, that is where I think it would have been okay to say. By the way, let's hear a word from my friends at DraftKings. Playoffs. You want to talk about playoffs? Yes, that's right. Football's playoff starts this weekend, and there's no better place to get in on all of the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new players a deposit bonus up to $1,000 when signing up using promo code Brodes. DraftKings Sportsbook has endless ways for you to bet, from live betting to betting on your favorite players. They do it all. Check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app every day this week to cash in on their daily odds boost. New boosts are posted every single day. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Brodes when you sign up and get up to $1,000. That's code Brodes to get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania. Only in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's knock out some Anytime Hotline calls, shall we? Calls were flying in after the game. You know I love that. If you don't know the Anytime Hotline number, it's 856-442-9805. It is always active. If you want to give me a buzz after any of these games, go ahead. And you have an opportunity to make the podcast. We also play these on 97.3 ESPN on the Sports Bash. So you will be heard not just here, but on the radio as well.
What's up, Brodes? I thought this game was terrible. No one played well except, I would say, Maxey and Shake Milton, but it was just terrible all around. I hate when they try to go so fast up the court when it's not even a fast break, and then they just turn it over trying to throw a lob or trying to force it in somewhere. They need to slow it down, let Joel Embiid get up the court. It was just an awful game to watch, especially. And it was one of those games where you knew, at least I knew they were going to, just felt like they were due for a loss. So, yeah.
I think that's fair. I really do. I think heading into this thing, you kind of realize the situation. They've been winning a ton of games. I guess to counter that, though, and I don't feel this way, I'm just looking at it from the other side just to play a little bit of devil's advocate. The other team has lost all of its power. The firepower was not there. Look, Levert is a nice player, and Joe Harris definitely spreads the floor. Those are capable guys, but they shouldn't be guys that can tear apart your healthy team. Seth Curry wasn't available, but you had Ben and Joel. This would be like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving playing, but not having Caris Levert. Well, there's still enough firepower there for the Nets that they should be able to win basketball games. That's how you could view the Seth Curry loss to this team. With the pushing the pace, Doc Rivers wants to play with pace. That's how he wants to operate. Now, that doesn't always necessarily mean the full speed and you're never doing anything but going vertical. There's a way to play with pace, but with poise. There's a way to play with speed, but still be smart and not just rush things. So, I see where you're coming from. They were doing that. They were rushing things. You got to be strategic with the way that you want to play, and with the fast pace, you can do it in a way that makes a lot of sense where your team is still operating at an efficient rate, and that's not the way that they were doing it. I mentioned the other night where Joel Embiid is constantly getting underneath the basket on not a fast break, but being the first up the floor and setting the tone by initiating where he wants to go. I saw Ben do that. They would try and force the pass in there where all the Nets defenders would be able to get their hands in the mix. The Nets defense forced 35 points, I should say. They forced 20-plus turnovers with the 35 points attached to it. That was the game right there. If you want to take the positive, you mentioned the two young guns stepping up. That's somewhat impressive, right? On a night where guys aren't there, is it easy to say, we don't have it tonight? It's not our night. So is it easy as a rookie or as a Shake Milton player? The rookie would be Tyrese Maxey I'm speaking about, but Shake Milton. Is it easy for those two guys to say, you know what, fellas? Ben's not having it. Joel's kind of not having it. Tobias started out okay, but then things fizzled out a bit. It is what it is. It's one of those nights. This is how it goes. I like the fact that they have the attitude of, look, I'm playing in the NBA right now. I'm going to make the most of my opportunities. I'm going to show what I can do. I want to prove to my coach that I have a skill set. And by the way, I wonder what this means for Furkan Korkmaz. The fact that Tyrese Maxey's playing well. The fact that these two guards are playing strong. What does that do for Furkan? I think his leash is going to be even shorter than it already was. Because if he's not knocking down shots, he's irrelevant. If Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton aren't knocking down shots, well, they do bring other things to the table that help you out. But with these turnovers, I just wonder how much of that has to do with less spacing because of Seth Curry. We've had so many guests on 97.3 over the last couple of days this week talking about the Sixers. Jason Fitz of ESPN, Keith Smith of Yahoo Sports NBA. He also writes for the Celtics blog. We had Paul Hudrick on, used to be the Sixers reporter for NBC Sports Philadelphia. He joined our team at 97.3. You know what they all say when you ask about the difference of this team? Spacing. And it's the first thing said. Spacing. Why is the team going so well? Spacing. What are they doing offensively? Does it look much different? There's a little something, but it's not anything crazy. It's not anything wild. Schematically, it's not this insane monster difference. It's spacing. All of them. Everyone. Well, Seth Curry knocking down 60% from three. Yeah, that adds a lot to the spacing.
See, we were right. We thought this game was going to be a laugher on TNT for a national audience, and it was. Just for the Nets, that is. I mean, what can you say? I mean, look, they lost every loose ball. This team's defense that was raved about, at least the last two games, has been totally non-existent, and your two superstars were nowhere to be found tonight. But I got to hone in on Joel Embiid. I mean, you're seeing, to me, a recurring pattern with this guy as far as questioning his conditioning. A 26-year-old athlete shouldn't look that dog-tired playing back-to-back games. You know, I watched a lot of basketball in my younger day, and the athletes back then seemed to do it. They didn't get nights off for load management and all of this stuff. This guy's conditioning has to be called into question. Totally non-existent tonight, totally withdrawn, and it's just happening more often than it should.
Well, that's one thing that I questioned when we saw this team early. I said, it's early. What happens when you get games under your belt? What happens when you have a little bit of damage to the body? What happens when you're running up and down the floor? Now, I'm with you with Joel Embiid. I also just wonder how much of this is, dude, the guy's 7 foot, the guy weighs a ton, and the guy's running up and down the floor nonstop. Now, I'm not pushing back on you. I'm asking the question. I don't have the information. I don't know the answer. I don't know the science behind it, but I feel like there has to be some correlation between being that big, being that strong, that thick, and banging down low and running up and down the floor. I remember a couple years back or so, they tracked the mileage of all these guys and how much they were running up and down the floor. He was at the top of the league at what he was doing. Is that why? Is it just something that he can't control? He can run and do all sorts of conditioning as much as he wants, but when it comes down to it, this is just a humongous human being doing something that's not normal to the human body. I don't want that to be the answer. I hope there's a way to find it out. But I do see the correlation you're trying to make with this guy is constantly out of shape, and it needs to change, or else you might be running into the same exact issues. Defense. You mentioned defense. That's another thing. As you start playing more, as you start running more miles, as you start just defending every single night, will it ease up? It's easy in the beginning of the year to have a lot of passion in your game. It's easy early on to play with a ton of energy because you're excited for the new year. You're excited to start the season. Look, they're only are they 7-2 now? So they're 9 basketball games in. There's a long journey to go, but we're close to 10 games now, and it's not anything wild, but it's not game 1 or 2 or 3 anymore. You're starting to get a little bit of flow in your schedule, and you're traveling, and in your games, and in your sleep schedule, and with the shoot-arounds. You're starting to enter the mix of getting used to and accustomed to the new season starting. Will there be the same level defensively? Will there be that same effort level? I really hope so, because if this team doesn't, then they will be in trouble. I expect them and anticipate them to be better than this and be better than what they were against Washington. Something needs to change, though. If I'm Doc Rivers, that's my biggest issue. Where the hell is the defense? That's what this team is made up of. If you defend, you'll win games. If you'll defend, you'll move up. You'll get transition buckets. You'll move the basketball well. As you're pushing the pace that way, you're going to naturally get these wide open 3 looks based off of our roster and our construction. Let's go. Let that work for you. Let that be the reason why you're so successful, knocking down 3-pointers and getting good looks inside the paint. That would be my biggest conversation if I'm Doc Rivers with the basketball team. Where did the defense go? Because if you fix that, I think you're going to fix a lot of issues, maybe offensively with this team as well. The defense creates the offense.
Hey, Sixers, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're allowed to play defense, right? No, I'm not going to get all up in arms about the team because they've had a really good start of the year, but getting absolutely torched by this Brooklyn Nets team without Kyrie, Irving, and Kevin Durant, that is not good. This team's given up 129 points a game in their last 2 games, and I gotta say it's pretty alarming. They had a great defensive start to the year, but they gotta really start clamping down, especially with the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic coming on Saturday. So, disappointing effort tonight defensively, but we'll see what happens going in the next game. Take care, Brodes.
Thank you so much for the call. If you remember last year, they started out that 5-0, right? But we talked about their defense. It was like, wow, look at this defense. They swarm teams. There's no way anyone's going to be able to get to the paint. And with Brett Brown's philosophy, his philosophy was, I don't want them to shoot a lot of threes, so that was one of his big targets, is what are the other team, what are they going to do? Let's run them off the 3-point line. Let's sag the big man, so when they come around that pick and roll, they're going to be taking that mid-range jumper. That's one of the reasons why they sagged the big man back. Of course, it got abused sometimes, but that was the mentality of, hey, if they're going to take a mid-range jumper, or if that's the way they're going to try and attack it, that's better than the 3-point shooting. My point is, that's sort of irrelevant. My point is, last year, they started out hot defensively, and then it somewhat turned into a bit of a nightmare. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just pointing it out. I'm using the past experience and saying, well, it did happen before. It doesn't mean it will happen this time, but it happened before. 136 points to Washington, 122 points to a Brooklyn Nets team without their best players. And one of them, Kevin Durant, he could put 50 on you. He could put 60 on you. You thought Bradley Beal could put 60 on you, and guess what? Kevin Durant could put 70 on you. Luckily, that didn't happen. But I wish they did so we can see how they would respond. You know, Joe Harris having 28, and not Kyrie, and Levert having 22. Yeah, they didn't do a good job at defending the guards, but I wanted to see how they would defend someone like Kyrie after allowing 60 from Bradley Beal. They have a stretch coming up of Denver, Atlanta, Miami. They got some big games coming up. I think Boston is a couple games after that. Tests. Hopefully, as long as people play. Wow, the Anytime Hotline was buzzing tonight. Non-stop.
Hey, Brodes. So tonight was terrible. Sixers shot horrible. I just have a question for you. Why do you think Doc Rivers put in Isaiah Joe in the third quarter when the Sixers were only down 13? And then he decided to put in Matthias. I know it's new shooters because everyone else was struggling, but I just think that was way too early. It was like they gave up in the third quarter, and they even made it within 8. It just didn't seem like there was any effort. Just wanted to know your thoughts.
Look, I think it's interesting, and it somewhat relates to what I was talking about with Rich Hoffman, that, hey, sometimes Doc Rivers might pull some guys early, but I don't think that relates to Matthias in the first quarter and then Isaiah Joe in the third. I think it could have been a little bit of a statement to some of the starters, like, yo, you fellas aren't playing good enough. Let me throw some other guys in there and give them a chance because you're not giving me the effort. But I think it more has to do with Seth Curry being out. I think it has to do more about the fact that you were trying to create more spacing opportunities. Isaiah Joe was a guy we talked about at the time of the draft who could knock down a bunch of threes, and he had the three-point shooting ability. We haven't really seen it yet, but that's what he is capable of doing. And with Isaiah Joe or Matthias, he can bring that shooting element as well. I think it really has to do with just the fact that Seth Curry wasn't in the lineup, and you're trying to find ways maybe to add more spacing and to get some three-point shooting back in that lineup since missing out on him. We keep talking about closing out quarters. I did think they pushed late third, but then the Nets kind of went back and went on a tear, and it was all over from there. So as I mentioned, there are a ton more Anytime Hotline calls. Since they have a day off before they play on Saturday afternoon, maybe I'll utilize them in a podcast tomorrow with the 76ers. If not, I'll have another podcast up or so. There's so many damn calls. You know what I mean? There's so many damn calls. That's why I love you guys. I love you guys so much. It's unbelievable. So we'll see what happens moving forward on the off day and what we'll talk about. There's just so much happening between these guys, the Eagles, the Phillies, and the Mets. And, the Flyers are starting soon. Fellas, we're about to hit the peak here, the peak of a lot of action going on. It's pretty exciting. I want to let you guys know before we get out of here about my friends at Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your solar experts in residential and commercial projects. Their solar program helps eliminate your electric bill completely. They offer flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. In addition, they will make sure that you receive all the state and federal incentives available for switching to solar. There's no risk and no need for investment. With the solar energy system, you can even increase the value of your home by an average of 4.1%. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So check out their information. It is all down below. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.